Great question. Only human. Not only do I have them both built, but we are going to do this video you asked for right now. So let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Camper and there's another video on Raid Shadow Legends. This is actually a question that a lot of people have been asking since ALIKA's upgrade on her A3 to lock everyone out properly like she should, like Basher does, like others, with a now 2-turn cooldown. For a recap, what happened before is ALIKA would have a 1-turn cooldown. So picture this. You go as ALIKA, you lock everyone out. They're locked out for 1 turn, but as they take their turn, it actually reduces the cooldown by 1 turn at the start of the turn. Therefore, there would be effectively 0 lockout. They changed it, so now it is equal to Bashers on a 2-turn. Again, watch it. It's on no cooldowns. You lock them out. They take their turn. They get a 1-turn refresh. They're down to a 1-turn cooldown. Effectively, it's a 1-turn lockout. With both of them the same, does that mean they're the same? Are they interchangeable? That's what we're going to answer today in this video. And I have them both built how I believe they should be built, which may or may not surprise you, but is completely different. So I'm going to go through my reasoning, my mindset. But first, why don't we just jump right into some action? I'm going to show the two of them together. We're going to run them in the arena as a group. Let's jump into it right now. Now, I'll kind of talk through my thought process as we run through this. But for me, they are two completely different champions, effectively speaking. I want to make sure I can... Yeah, we'll try this one. So, when you talk about these two champions, you're kind of looking at the lockout ability. But really, the lockout is just one piece of the puzzle. And the rest of their abilities is really the difference maker on what is what, as far as what each of them can do and where I see them both best used. Or rather, how I see them both best used. Now, we're going to start with this. We're going to go with the speed booster rather than that. And we're just going to go to make sure, hopefully, we actually go first here. God, it's nice to find all my champions perfectly. Okay. And then we're going to go with... We'll go with this. In this case, we'll go with the second, a backup nuke, right? Not you either. We're gonna go with you. All right. So this is a team that I might bring in as a mid to late game player, even if I'm free to play. Hey, look, I get my Arbiter free from the missions. Getting 2 epics is as difficult as anything else. I mean, it's much more free-to-play friendly than 2 Void Legendaries, right? And then I've got Rotos. Rotos is a Magic Affinity champion. You might have your nuker. It could be him. It could be any of the other champions. Maybe it's a fusion champion you built, and so on and so forth. Keeping in mind that Rotos was a fusion champion, so hey, that's more free-to-play than not a fusion champion, though admittedly mine's +1. So here we're going to go in here, and I'm going to show you how they're going to be used, and we're going to talk through why they're doing what they're doing. And what my mindset is when I go, first of all, we're boosting first. That's good. Now we're going to lock out. This is the lockout, right? Yep. So now they're locked out for 1 turn. That's good. So I have to now keep in mind who's what. But I'm actually not going to go for lockout. I'm actually going to do this right here. Boom. She's dead. She's out of the picture, right? Wait a minute, but we were doing lockouts. Well, absolutely, we were doing lockouts, but now we're doing something different. So you see how I used Basher to lock out and ALIKA to destroy, and boy oh boy can she destroy. It's something people forget about. She is one of the harder hitting champions in the game. Now we can actually put that on. That's actually really great against Helikath, right? Pretty strong, reasonable return. Now maybe we're not doing as well as we normally would. Now I can lock out with her. It was a weak hit, didn't happen, but that's okay, we won. So there's a perfect example of how I see them being used together or separately. Now, how are they being used differently? Let's take a look at each of their kits individually. We'll take them through a few more fights in arena and maybe a few fights in dungeons, just so we get a good feel of what we're talking about here. Let's go into the actual builds here. Let's start with ALIKA. She'll be the first one on the list. Actually, why do I do this to myself every time? I can't go recently used first. Wow. Okay, so here's ALIKA. I have her built in Savage. I have her built for damage. I have her with just a sprinkle of accuracy. Now let's take a look at her stats here. I'm going to disappear here while we can talk about her stats. I'm always bad at doing this. Sorry, I'll show you that in a minute. We'll go here. Okay, so here's her stats. 34,000 HP, not a big deal. It's her attack at 5672, her speed at 226, 248 crit damage, and 301 accuracy. These are the stats that I'm using for her. There's a very specific reason why I have chosen to do this. Let's take a look at her masteries now. While I'm still not here, this is a standard for me damage dealing. I have her in Helm Smasher. I have her down the defense chain to hopefully get retribution, right? We have this Ruthless Ambush for the first extra 8% the first time she hits an enemy. These are all very intentional for very strong damage. I've also picked her Crushing Rend, which each round a number of champion hits will ignore a percentage of the target's defense. This is all about mitigating defense. Let me get back on screen here. This is all about mitigating defense for her. Why? Because of this skill here. You saw how much it hit. It hit a Siffy for 270,000 undebuffed. Because why? Absolutely. She has 50% of the target's defense via the skill is ignored. What else do we have? Well, on top of that, we have the possibility for the Helm Smasher, 25%. We have, of course, 25% from her gear. So she's sitting at 75% already. What I could actually do, because I have Crushing Rend, and I think it's 10%. It's one for each 50 levels. So it's not a big deal in PvP. It will be a big deal in PvE, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get over there. So it's only level 2. It's really to get that 400 extra attack, but this will just ignore an extra 1%. Just in case you don't get that Helm Smasher proc. If you do get the Helm Smasher proc, boom, 0 defense, right? You're just ignoring defense completely, and you saw how hard that thing can hit. Why the smidgen of accuracy? Obviously, we're building her for nuking. I didn't put her in my best gear. This is all replacement gear. I didn't take any gear from anyone else. But, you know, if she's your nuker, pump it up, right? If you have dual nukers, she could be your number 2 nuker, and your number 1 nuker could have your best gear, she could have your second best gear, or whatever it is depending on your account. But she has endgame level damage, single target endgame level damage. But now she also has some utility, and I want to compare her or liken her a bit to Stultus Dragonbane. Obviously completely different kits. What do I mean by comparison? Well, Stultus is a champion who I want damage. That's my main thing. You see here, I have him built for damage. Tons of defense, good crit damage. I want him to smack hard, but a sprinkle of accuracy because he has utility that can make the difference. It's all about interrupting the enemy's plan. The enemy wants to do its turn in its turn order, and anything you can do to interrupt that, the better. And that's where I'm using Stultus. He's not going to land stun on every target, but he's going to land stun on a couple targets, 1, 2, maybe 3, depending on the resistance of the opponent. Why do I pick 300 accuracy? Very specifically. Take a look here. You've got 195 resistance. Take a look here. You've got 226 resistance. These are champions I'm not specifically building for resistance, but happen to have resistance. 321 resistance. These are not resistance-based champions, right? 248. What I looked at when I look at my team, my resistance goes from about 200 naturally, from about 200 to 300 resistance, give or take, until I start building champions specifically with resistance. They just seem to have in amongst that range, right? So if I have 300 accuracy, it's going to give me a good opportunity, even against someone like Mighty Uko, technically has higher resistance. That doesn't mean anything, right? You have to have about 100 over to guarantee to be 3% chance to not resist, right? So if I can get that going with ALIKA, that means I can use on her second round through, I can use this to lock out someone, to disrupt the enemy team, and then I'm going to be using these 2 abilities, which are ridiculous hitting, in order to kill. How do I use Basher differently? Let's take a look at Basher and see how I treat him differently. Basher has the skill of attacking all enemies, increases the cooldown, same thing, right? Oh, I should go over, sorry, my apologies. I want to go over ALIKA's skill kit. We know this one. This is what we're talking about. But this one, we talked about it. It ignores defense if her max HP is lower than the whoever she's hitting. So obviously a Siphi's gonna have more HP. Boom, easy clap. On top of it, this is one of the hardest hitting A1s in the game. Situationally, arguably the hardest hitting, although there are some others that have conditions on them that make them the harder hitting. So we'll call it among the hardest hitting A1s in the game among all epics. It's phenomenal damage. It is obscene damage. We'll look at the damage multipliers in a minute, and we're gonna go through that on the back half after we do some more runs in arena and things, just so I can talk as to why I made these decisions. But for now, let's just take a look at my good friend Basher here. Now Basher has that skill, same as the A3. It's going to lock everyone out. It's her A2. But now he follows this up with a very support level type skill, block buffs, and it's 4 times at random, but it is 100%. 100% among epics is something that Plarium's scared of. This is an old champion, much older champion, so I think it was before they thought, oh, we'll just add RNG to everything, and it actually has 100%, and even a 75% chance on his A1 for a weekend. That is near unheard of. 75% chance to land something on an A1? Wow, not a bad overall group. How am I using him? Well, we're putting him in speed and perception. We are making sure that this guy can hit 300 speed, 611 accuracy. The numbers are irrelevant to you. Here, I'm going to disappear. The numbers are irrelevant. What they are is the best speed accuracy combination that you can do for your account to still get through. One of the newest content creators to hit the scene is Shinny, and he gave the best advice ever, and it actually reformulated. I don't know if that's the right word. You know, I reevaluated how I was building some of my champions, and the reality is you're better off being fast and nearly high accuracy as opposed to being super accuracy and you know, unattainable, right? 750 accuracy and 650 accuracy. There's not a lot of difference when it comes to a lockout champion. The reason is it's more important for you to go first. It's more important for you to get to take that turn. And that was something I changed my Yumko around. Have a lower one. For example, maybe you have Basher and ALIKA. You can run your Basher at the fastest you can get and locking out. Keep in mind, you don't have to lock everyone out. Your goal is to lock out their top accuracy, right? Their debuffers, that sort of thing, and to lock out their Siphies or their Duchesses. Now, yeah, absolutely, you could run into an 800 resistance Duchess and you can't lock them out, but guess what? You can know that because they're going to have 400, 500, 600 resistance. Skip them. Move on to 200, 300 resistance, and 600 accuracy is going to be more than enough for you. Or alternatively, you can absolutely bring in someone like a Yoshi or Lady Kimmy to assist on Basher's accuracy and just focus on making sure he goes. So I did 300 speed just so I didn't have to steal gear from some of my faster champions, but this still gives me the chance to lock out teams for one turn and let me do what I want to do. I want to impress my ideas, my vision, my game plan before they do their game plan, okay? So that's why we have what we have. And then you look at masteries here. Masteries here, we went away from offense. We went into full support. We went Eagle Eye. We do want this. If there's a dead ally, it gives us some extra speed. We want Eagle Eye for that extra accuracy. Never hurts to be able to get that turn meter boost so we can get back around, back around, back around. We want those sort of things, right? We also have increases accuracy here. It's all about it. Evil Eye, great ability. This was just, Master Hexer was just to be able to get to Eagle Eye, although Master Hexer does extend the chance on his A3 and A1, so also a good opportunity. So that's how we have them built differently. Let's take them into a few more scenarios, and we'll see them in action again. Let's go to the arena. I mean, honestly, this is about the arena. They're going to be equally good in PvE where it needs to be. So here's an example. You know that Mithral is a high accuracy champion. You know that that's going to be the case. Not a good champion to bring it up against. But you look at this 292. There's no one. Hefrak might be in Stone Skin. We're going to run the risk. And we're just going to give this a try. We might lose this because if he is in Stone Skin. Yeah, so and Trunda in Stone Skin. Interesting. So here we can lock the enemy team out. My hope is actually that they cut. They don't. Okay. So she's already gone. I don't want to kill anyone just yet. So I'm going to I still killed them. Oh, well, that's good. It didn't matter. So we can actually get rid of you. We'll just hit you. We'll see if we get a strip here. We didn't. Ow. 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 Okay, now we can actually put up the block. Very nice when there's a few people already dead. It definitely goes here. So now I can delete someone, and we're going to delete her because she's dangerous. 154,000, easy clap. And he is no longer, by the way, he is no longer locked out, but that's all we needed. We just needed to get around to our turns to win the match. There's another perfect win. And it's actually a great combination. The two of them with any sort of, man, if you have an AoE on the back end, right? If I had my Trunda, for example, or if I brought Baron in with this, I wanted to bring Rotos in because it's a little bit faster. He's 200 speed. She's 221. It's more of a live arena kind of look with faster speeds among your nukers. You tend to be faster speeds on the live arena because you don't control the narrative. It depends on who gets banned and the whole 9 yards. So typically, so far at least, live arena has been faster nukers. Doesn't mean it's a speed meta, but the speed's definitely more of a factor in live arena. Tangent anyway. Do we want to do one more? This team's probably faster than me. We could actually, if we were that parent, this may not work. This may not work, but we're gonna give it a try. Where's our boy? There it is. So we can do this too. Need to keep hydrated. Oh, he actually was fast enough. Sweet. 1 turn cooldown. Now we gotta sleep. I was worried about that. Well, 2 can play that game. That sucked. This may not work just because I don't have my secondary nuker. Okay, let me have a turn. Let me have a turn. Let me have a turn. There we go. Okay, now we're going to lock them out. Boom, we killed them. There we go. It's a little scary. But that was actually a pretty difficult team we were able to take on with a couple epics and a couple of legendaries. I don't know. I mean, probably not the same gear as we're talking about. But then again, if you're fighting better geared champions than this, you got a Baron with a couple of stars. You got a Kymar, Siphi, Arbiter, good all-around team. If you're fighting stronger than this, you probably have stronger than this to lean on. But hey, a win's a win. Now let's go into the into something PvP related. I don't want to make this too over-the-top difficult, but let's go into Doom Tower. I tried earlier today with high level. The problem is these guys just get so wackadoodle strong that it's almost not fun. Maybe let's try 22, see what 22 is like. And we can actually bring in... We're going to bring in both ALIKA and Basher. We can even use Basher. He's got a 25% HP aura, very strong here. We can even bring in our Rotos. Like, you know, this is what you do when you're free to play. You use what you can. You know, just my free to play Krisk. All right, you see there's the lockout. You probably want to actually change it so they're not double locking out on each other. That was kind of a misnomer on me. In fact, let me do it in manual just because I don't feel like creating a team just for the rules. So, you know, you can lock out here. And then in this case, because they're locked out, I'm not too worried about it. I'm actually just going to do that. And then we're going to delete someone we don't want to deal with. And then we can bring our big hits. Should be able to pop that. Boom. I mean, that's 60,000 with no debuffs on a level 257. Like, that's hitting way more than Ethos, who I guarantee you has better gear. So now we flip over to here. You've got 3 out of 4. That's actually a pretty good spread. Now we can use the taunt. We can do some big hits here. Now it's her turn. She can lock them out. And then we can just slowly pick away at these champions. Very strong combination, right? Because you're using both of them. Might be the moral of the story. The answer here is they're both so good. Now we're back to him. We did get a resist. That's okay. We just means we know who to target first. I don't even need to delete her. We'll delete. Ooh, I just realized after doing that he was weak affinity. That's okay. We'll just slowly. Oh, okay. Now that ally attack didn't go as well for you as you thought. Boom. Blow them down. And come on. There we go. So there's a perfect example, right? We have an opportunity. Basher's doing his job. Alika's doing her job. Now, why am I building one attack champion to attack and the other not? Let's answer that question next. To answer the question, why wouldn't I build them both attack? You have to take a look at their kits and their multipliers. Now, to do that, we're going to go to hellhades.com and we're going to take a look at their respective kits and the multipliers, which thankfully Hellhades and his team has listed on their site so that we can view it. Now, this here is ALIKA. ALIKA, this is one of the downfalls of ALIKA. So we'll get into that part later. You see all the books, we get it. We'll talk about it at the end. But what I see here is we have that disorient, which is that lockout. It's 2 turns, same thing as Bashers, right? But what we have here is that ignores 50% defense if the max HP is higher. We see this multiplier of 6.3%. It is a 6.3%. Sorry, no percent. It's a 6.3 multiplier on a base attack of about 1350, but that ignores potentially 100% defense. I'll say that again. Potentially ignores 100% defense. That is pure damage at a 6.3 multiplier. It is phenomenal. That is a great ability with next level end game damage. But that's not all. She also has Gap Shot. Now, Gap Shot might be the most underrated A1. I don't hear anyone but myself talking about it. It's a 4.2 attack on an A1. That in itself is pretty obscene. That's a pretty high number. But she has a 50% chance of placing an extra hit. And if you happen to build her because you didn't have Basher and you needed that lockout, the second hit is always critical. So you will always get a beautiful 50-50 chance for a second hit being a critical. But the best way, of course, is to crit cap her. Don't leave it to chance, right? And that, if she gets that 50-50 chance, if she gets that second hit, that's equivalent, sort of, to a 8.4 attack multiplier on a single target. That is obscene damage. That is obscene damage of an epic. And it's why she's one of the best damage-dealing epics in the game, is because both her skills, her A2 and her A1, can potentially delete champions. Now, is she going to be able to delete endgame platinum level Sifis and the like? Probably not. But can she complement another team built how we built her? Yes, which is why I built her that way. I want her to do as much damage as possible before she goes down, and the extra ability to maybe one turn lock out some of the champions, interrupt the enemy's game plan, absolutely falls into the wheelhouse. So why is it that I'm not doing this? Oh, by the way, she does have a 4.0 attack multiplier on her A3. Respectable, not really next level. So why is it that I'm telling you to build her damage but not Basher? To answer that, let's go to Basher. Basher also has, obviously, 3 skills. You see his A2 is his lockout skill. It's a 3.8. Now, he does have a bigger starting attack. It's about 1450, about 100 more attack than ALIKA does to start. But 3.8 is not 4.0, and you can always make up the difference in gear. The reality is, neither of them are hitting endgame damage. It's good damage. It's not crazy damage. The reality is a 3.8 and a 4.0. They hit roughly the same. She might hit a little bit harder, but not a whole lot. The fact that I'm building her with Helm Smasher in Savage gear is going to help even that A3 hit a lot harder than his A2, but we could build him in Savage and get the same. So that's not the equalizer. But when you read his A3, which is on a 4-turn cooldown, it's a 100% chance 4 times at random of placing a block buffs debuff. Now this is a very strong skill against a Siphi that you just locked out. Even if she does get around and takes another turn, she may not be able to place all her buffs. Does she do a cleanse? I feel like she does a cleanse and I'm an idiot. Let's just say Duchess. Say it's Duchess, and she may not be able to place her buffs on every single champion because that block buffs is in the way. So that's a support level skill. Also, 1.55 is a very weak multiplier. Now it does hit 4 times. If it hit all 4 times at one champion, that would almost hit as well as ALIKA's, except ALIKA also has that ignore 50% defense, meaning it isn't even close. Even if it was to hit all 4, the reality is that's a whole lot of RNG. You're not using his A3 to kill people because there's no guarantee it's going to hit anyone. Whereas hers, you're picking who the target is, her A2. And that's a big difference. This is better off if I can guarantee to land his lockout, I can guarantee to land his A3, and then his A1, which is a 3.2 attack. Remember, she's a 4.2 with a second hit. His is a 3.2, no extra hit, and it's a 75% chance of placing a weaken. It's a support ability. He's got 3 support abilities, even though he's attack. This is why he's even got an HP aura. He's a nuker, but he has an HP aura. I know better. Absolutely, this is the way I recommend building him. Don't build him for attack, build him for survivability and that high speed, high accuracy combination, and he will do the best he can for your team. Whereas ALIKA, build her more like I said with the Stultus, where you're building her for complete damage and just a peppering of accuracy to lock out those kind of base level non-resisted champions in that 2 to 300 or 150 to 300 range, where you can still have a really good solid chance of locking some of them out, maybe all of them out, and disrupting the enemy game plan. But she's going to be there for nuking level. So that is it. In the end, what are my thoughts? Obviously, they're both really good. I build them totally different, and I recommend their use completely different. Which one's better? Well, that's a little cloudier. I think in the beginning, Basher is definitely a better champion than ALIKA. Why? Because he is Void Affinity and he has a 25% aura. That 25% HP aura can make you survive in the early game. That is the difference between living and dying in some of those early runs when you're pushing to level 20 dungeons. I think that's a great ability. Plus, if you're taking that into the arena and you're fighting through bronze and silver into gold 1, that's going to be phenomenal. And the fact that he's Void Affinity means no weak hits, means you're going to lock them down as long as you have the accuracy and you don't get the dreaded 3%. Whereas ALIKA has 2 negatives. 1, she's got no aura. Well, 3. We're going to say 3 negatives. 1, she's got no aura. That's not a huge deal. But she's Force Affinity, which means she cannot, or she has a potential of not locking out Spirit Affinity champions. Duchess. Right? That's, need I say more? Duchess is the plague of everyone. Every Force Affinity, every Candrafon owner in the world knows the ire that is Duchess. So they both love her because a Duchess Candrafon's a great pairing, and hate her because trying to kill a Duchess with a Candrafon is like slamming your head against the door to try to open it. That said, as you get into later progression, she's probably going to be better because you run past the fact that you're just trying to survive and you move into the mode where you're trying to kill quicker. And she is going to bring damage, and she's going to bring high-end damage, which is going to help you way better than just the guaranteed lockout. But frankly, they're both, in my opinion, endgame substitutes if you don't have your Warlord, you don't have your Yumiko, and you want to have some sort of lockout ability, especially 3v3. Even if you don't want to use it in Classic Arena, you're a little bit hesitant on leaning into a 1-turn cooldown lockout, or you're pushing plat and you're just using a different strategy rather than trying to lock people out. Makes perfect sense. But 3v3, both of them together, like I showed you, is probably the best of them all. Now, there is one other thing about ALIKA that does make her more late game and less beginning middle, and a little less free-to-play friendly, and that is she takes more books than the Great Library of Alexandria. She has I believe it's 19. Is it 19? Let's see. Basher has as little as 7. You don't need his A1 booked at all. So you're just trying to land his A2, A3. So it's going to be at best 7, at worst 11 books. That is good to average. That is great to good even, I would say. Whereas we take a look at ALIKA. Any more books, please? So what is that? 7 and 13 and 20 books. That is 20 books. And to make it worse, is not only is it 20 books, but in order for her to maximize her death dealing potential, you need her A1 book. So it is a true 20 books. That said, as you progress through the game, you've got your main epic champions booked, you're hitting Ultra Nightmare Clan boss, you're progressing nicely. Now it's time to kind of step up in certain areas and get that next level damage, next level kit. Then we start looking at ALIKA if you're free to play and you haven't pulled any legendaries. I think she's great anyway. I think you won't, in the long run, you put these 20 books, you pay the piper, you pick your poison in the mid game when you have a moment to put 20 books down, and at the end of the day you have a champion that absolutely crushes in faction wars, crushes in arena, crushes in 3v3 arena, maybe even live arena. Overall, just a great champion to have in your arsenal. So I don't ever regret telling anyone or doing myself booking this champion out. I have built, I think, 120 119. I built them champions. I have another probably 50 champions epics I've built, maybe more, maybe 100 champions I've built that I've just done a video on because they're more mainstream champions. ALIKA is still one of the epics I use regularly, and that's all I can tell you is out of 200 plus built epics, I still consider ALIKA among the creme de creme of the kit, and the fact that they fixed her A3 makes her even better. So those are my thoughts. Build your Basher for survivability, high speed, high accuracy. Build your ALIKA for high damage, high volatile damage. Speed is tuned right to whatever you need, and about that 300 accuracy. You can probably get around 200 accuracy if you're in the early to mid game, because enemies won't have natural resistance. They won't have a built Great Hall for 80 resistance. They won't have faction guardians. They won't have +3, I think +2 or +3 whenever you get the resistance. They won't have that on their side, so you're probably going to get away with lower accuracy. But your accuracy will have to creep up as you get more and more into the late and end game. So that's all I have for you. That's my showcase on these two champions. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. But thank you again for the question. I'm glad I could do the video. So until the next time, please be kind, be safe. We'll see you in the next one.